Alright, in this video we'll create a WordPress plugin that will show notice information to the admin, saying that for this admin called UI Monk, he has to complete 8 blocks and the due date is 25th 7th 2025. Similarly, for admin UI Monk, let me just log in as UI Monk, and that UI Monk administrator will have notice again. If I click on login, you would see the notice he has to complete 8 blocks and the due date is 25th. Now for all the information you can see on user notices, so these are the admins and that are the relevant message that they had. Now let's add one more notice to another admin. Let's say the admin hits Vishal, and let's create complete 13 blocks on 27th and click on assign notice. And if the administrator Vishal logs in, let's just log in as Vishal, and he should get the notice saying that he has to complete 13 blocks and the due date is 27. And as you've seen, this is a new page where he can view all the deadlines with the messages, and then we have the place where we can enter the details, and that's it. Here we are going to create a custom table. This will hold all the information that we have entered, and we'll be fetching these values in the custom table, which is coming from with the help of WP list page, which is a class that you have to modify the function to get this functionality. Now the thing that we are going to learn in this tutorial is we are going to see how to create a custom table. You'll see this is a custom table that we have created, and then we'll see how to create the dashboard menu. So in the dashboard you can see there is the menu and the submenus are created, and then we'll see how to create a form. Once we click on the assign notes, you will see this form will create this. Once you click on submit, that data would get stored in this database, and then we'll see how to add pagination. So if you let me just make this pagination per page as just 2 so that we can see the actual pagination in action. I'm just making this 2 purposely so that we have only 3 values. So if I click on the next page, you'll see the pagination feature, and then we have how to display the admin bar information. So you can see each administrator will get a message on the admin bar menu. So this is called admin bar menu, and let's see how to create this. So before doing anything, let me just uninstall this plugin so that it doesn't get conflict our way once we create this. Now for the plugin to work, the bare minimum requirement is the plugin to show up in this page. The bare minimum requirement is to have a folder. Let's just call this notices, and then I'm opening it in Visual Studio Code. So we need to have a PHP file inside the folder which should be same name as your plugin, as your folder name. And now to give the information about the name, the description and the version and the author name, we have to write a simple comment. So let me just do that. So the plugin name that we can have here is, let's just say notice UI Monk notice, and then the version is 2.0 and the author is UI Monk. Now this is a bare minimum, and you'll see your plugin in the list. Now once you click on activate, once I click on activate, we want a table to be created on this table, on this dashboard, sorry, on the database. Now the function that we need is register activation hook, let's call that. So to create a table, we just need to execute a SQL query. To execute the SQL query, WordPress gives you your database object, so it's nothing but wp-db. Now with this we need to get the prefix of the table. So WordPress, once you install WordPress will ask you what is the preferred WP, sorry, what is the preferred prefix for your table? So by default it's WP underscore DV, sorry, WP underscore. So we are going to give a table name. Now it should again have the WP. So this object has the prefixes, and the table that we are going to name it is notice, WP underscore notice. And then what we need to do is we need to create a SQL query and the character set. Character set is nothing but the way how your database will sort the columns. It's the sorting mechanism. So we'll get the character set using the WPDV, so the function that is get character set collate. Now we are running a SQL query that will create the column ID, user ID, message, completion date, and I'm making this ID as a primary key and passing the character set. Now this is a custom table. So whenever there is a custom table, WordPress gives a function called delta dv. So we have to define where delta dv is, and then we will run the SQL query. So the first we need to define the path. It's in the wp admin includes folder upgrade.php, and this is a delta dv which runs your SQL code. Now since once your plugin is active, you should see the table named wp underscore notice in this table, in this database. So where is notice, noti, yes, it's here. Now you should see your column that you have created. It's there. Now what we need to do is we need to create a menu page so that we can see our menu over here. So admin menu is a hook that will call our function. So admin menu is a hook. Once admin menu hook is called, the relevant function would get executed, and this is a function to create the menu, and this is a function to create the sub menu. So this is the page title, this is the label that needs that the label this is the label that your menu needs, and this is the capability for the user manage option, and then we have the slug, and this is the relevant function that would get called, and this is the icon, and this is the priority list. The greater the priority, the later your function will get executed. The same way, this is a slug for your menu, actual menu, for top level menu, and this is sub menu, and this is again the page title, the label, and then we have our capability, and then this is the slug for the submenu, and this is the function. Now to make this work, we have to simply define the function first. So this is for main menu where we will have our WP list page, which is the function, and this will have the form. Now first, this is the bare minimum to see your menu, top level menu. You can see admin notice, sorry, user notices, and this will have all notices. Let's just name this as all notices, and then we can have this all notices, and then we can have is add notice as a submenu. You will see add notice. So this is all notice, and it's not loaded yet, I guess. I think I have, this is the page title, and this is the label. So all notice and add notice, cool. So first thing, once I click on add notice, I need to show an HTML form. Let's do that. So here let me show you the HTML so that you will have a better understanding. Here we will have some input field and the drop down button. So we have a drop down button here. What we will simply have what are the admins are there, administrator are there, and this is the message, and this is the field for the text area, and this is the submit button. So now this is the table that we have created. The first one is the select tag. The option will populate it once we get the administrator role, and then we have the input text for the message, and then we have the input text for the completion date, and then this submit function will give you the button. Now what we need is we need to run an SQL query so that we can get the admin populated over here. So to run the SQL query, we need to call the WordPress global object first, and then to get the value, what you need is these information are stored in the user meta. So we can access this user meta, or one more table is there, which is WP user, which will hold all your information, all the user information. Now with the help of get user function, we'll make use of role. So get user usually get into the user meta, and it will look for the column called WP capabilities, and these information are stored over here. You see, what I have done is I have just made this table to show 500 columns. So this is the third ID. User ID 3 has the capability of administrator, and user ID 2 has the capability of administrator, and user ID 1 has the capability of administrator. So these user ID are actually the primary key of the WP user table 1, 2, 3. So these three are the administrator. So get user simply gets your admin details. Now we need to populate this in the option tag. With the help of for each, we have this in the variable called admins. With the help of populate, we will use the option tag, and we'll pass the ID, user ID, and we'll display the names and the email along with the option. So if I refresh, you should see in the option you will find name and the email. So on select, there would be their relevant primary key ID. Now once I click on submit, what should happen? These data should get stored into the database. So we need to check, when I click on the submit button, we need to check whether all the values are filled or not. So to check, this is how we check. If these values are filled, then we have to store this into a relevant variable, user ID, message and date. Now we need to run an insert query with the table name which we have already defined at the top, and insert into table name, we'll get these user ID, message and completion date from this table below, and we are storing these values which are stored in the form of variable. Now if I update something, complete 8 article by next week, let's say 2, click on assign, and once I click on all notices, I should see all the values in the form of table by fetching these values. So for that, since we have already written our function for when I click on the menu, what should happen? So that function that we need to execute here. So first thing first, we have to call the class. So we need to call the class. If the class is not defined, then add the class to the plugin. So this is what we are saying in this line, and now we need to define the class. So inside the class, what actually we need? So we need three things. The first one is the header. We need to define the header of the table, then we need to define what content should be there on the table, and then we need to define the pagination for the table. So let's just do that. So three functions that need to be written on the function called prepare item, which we will extend from this class. So let's create a class now. So this is a class which will have the prepare item defined. We need to override it in our class. So before that, let's define the constructor. So we are defining the table as, we are naming it as notices, and we are saying we don't need hx, and after that let's override the prepare item. So over here we need to define the header first. So to get the header, this WP list table already has a function that will give you your table column name in the form of associative array, and we can assign the relevant table name that we get from the database, and we can assign our user defined column name. Let's do that. So this is the function, and this is the, in the left side you have the table name from the database, and the right side you are defining your table name for the relevant column name. So now we need to call the header. So for the header we have a protected variable that we can override here, so we are overriding it. So this is a protected variable column header, and we are defining the column name, and does your column has some hidden values, does your column need to be hidden? I say no, that's why I'm passing empty array. Does your column need to be sortable? I'm saying no, that's why it's empty array again. Now your column is set. Now inside the column you need data. So to get the data we need to fetch these values. So to fetch these values, of course we need to define the WPDB global variable. And before fetching, what happens is we are using pagination. So pagination, we need to define how many list, how many rows to be defined first. We have to define that. So per page I want to display 2, and we need to get the information of how many tables, how many rows are actually there. Let's do that. So with this you'll get how many rows are there in the table, and now you need to get two values. The values are, the first one is, if suppose you have 5 pagination, sorry, 1 2 3 4 5 pages, and each of them has 2 rows in it. Now if suppose I click on the third page, so on the third page, from where the row should get start. So this is 1 2, so this is 3 4, and this is 5 6. So if I click on 3, what should happen is the row 1 2 3 1 1 2 3 4 5 and 6 value need to be displayed. So when I click on 3, 5 and 6 rows need to be displayed. So to do that we need to first know from where the user has clicked. So actually we need the current pagination value. So with this we'll get the current pagination value, and then we need, after 3, on the third page what are the values would be there? It would be 5 and 6. So we need to do some calculation, so that's called offset. So this is 3 actually, this is 3 and this is 3 minus 2, so which is 2 into 2, which is 4. So after 4, 5 and 6 is there, that 5 and 6 would get displayed. If you don't understand what I said, I would recommend you to re-watch what I said earlier. So I believe that's clear. Now we need to run an SQL query that will have the offset and the limit. The limit is 2 per page and the offset is this one which I have explained right now. So on the same table we are saying that offset is this one and the limit is 2 per page, and then display it in the form of associative array. Now we'll have the associative array. Now we can display the data in the form of columns, sorry, in the form of rows. So we have our header set. Where is the header? We have our header set, and then we have our data is also set, items, it's called items is also set. And pagination, we need to define the pagination. So we need to define these values which we have already seen: total number of rows, and per page how many items should be there, and what is the total number of pages. So the total number of pages you'll get by calculating. If we have 40 item, and if we divide it by 2, then it will be 20 pages. So we'll have 20 pages, total number of pages 20. And now what we need? Now we need to display our row. So to display our row, again this class gives you a function that need to be overridden. Let's just do that, which is column default. Now this column default is written so that in case if you want some data, let's say you want this WP, where is WP notice? Let me just show you. If suppose you want to modify this message and display it like this one, so if it is user, so this item is nothing but row, we can simply make this row. This is actually row, and this is actually the column name. So if the column name is user ID, then display the username, or else if it's not, just display unknown. And if the column name is message, then modify the HTML, surround it with the span tag and display the message, and that's it. Now where your function is called here, your function is called actually here. Now what we need is, we need to create where it's created, yeah, we need to create an object, then we need to initialize the display item. So just after your class ends, yeah, just after your class ends, you need to create an object, and you call the initialize the prepare item function and display the item. Now if everything goes well, you should see your entered value. You can see complete 8 articles. So let's just add one more notice and give it to UI monk, complete task 8 and some random values. Click completed by 31st, click on assign note, and just to see the pagination, let's add one more thing, add notice, and if you click on all notices, you should see the pagination works. Now it's time to display, and now it's time to understand who the admin is, and how to display the information on the admin bar menu. So to modify the admin bar menu, we have a hook called admin bar. Now we have a hook called admin bar menu, and I've given the least priority. If it's 100, then it's the least priority. And first we are checking if the user is not logged in, and if the user is not admin, then just exit this function. And then we need to know who is actually logged in. So to know who is actually logged in, we'll use the get current user ID, so that will know which administrator is logged in, which user is actually logged in. Now we need to run a query. That's the reason I have used the WP object. So wherever there is prefix, we need to write the proper name. Now again we need to run a query. So we are running a query saying that select message and completion date from the table, where user ID is this one, which is the current logged in ID, and order by ID, and then just show only one value. That's the reason we have limited it. Now this will hold the current logged in user along with the messages from the table we have created. And we would say if this is not empty, then we will be getting an argument called WP admin bar, and use the function called add note, and this is required because it should be uniquely identified. And then we are passing title is also required to know what actually it is, and on the title we are passing the value which is fetched from the database, and this is the text. Again, this is the value from the database. If everything goes well, you should see the admin notice. Yes, this is for the admin Vishal. Let me just log out and log in by the user admin, and in this case he would have another notice saying that complete 8 article. To cross check, you can just get into the all notices, and if the user is admin, you'll see complete 8 articles by 2nd of August. So 2nd of August due date. So I hope the scope of this video is done. Thank you so much for listening. Meet you in another WordPress plugin tutorial maybe tomorrow. Thank you so much for now.